Hey, my name's shawnshawn. I sell art on shawnshawn.co. Today we're going to interview Arte Fresko. Check it out, guys.
Here, you know, I said, this is my home. You know, that's the gallery I work in. I'm not going. I said, you leave. He was, oh man, he was ice grilling me, and he started talking on his microphone. He's like, people, you leave, you get off the street. He's talking shit. And,
that's hilarious. Well, I mean, if she allows him all the time, he feels like it's his.
Well, I didn't know.
Space
I don't know him that well, you know. And she was telling him, calm down, he's my friend, blah, blah, blah. And I said, Jamie, I think he's jealous that I'm talking to you right now, you know.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
It's like, that's his person, you know.
So how did you first get started in art?
First, I would say I've always been an artist from as long as I can remember. There's never a time in my life where I can remember not being an artist.
Yep.
So from being a kid and my mom giving me pencils and crayons to keep me busy and keep me quiet, that would be the start of it. Then grammar school, teaming up with some artsy friends, drawing Snoopy and Tom and Jerry, the cartoons and things like that, getting influenced by comic books.
Yep.
That would be the progression. And then eventually in middle school, me and these artsy guys coming up with our own comic book stories, things like that. Later on, as a teenager, the graffiti and hip hop movement started. I'm old school. So yeah, I was the first generation breakdancer back in the day, believe it or not. So in the mid '80s, the graffiti movement was exploding. So it was going from very simple graffiti, and it was growing and growing, and that excited me. So graffiti was one of the first art forms that really made my heart beat. You know, it spoke to me. It excited me. I could feel my pulse quicken when I looked at graffiti art. So I began drawing and sketching and doing my own versions of graffiti art. So those would be the humble beginnings of how I got started.
And did you do any kind of like tag work, like commission work for your students at school, or?
At school, I became the guy who was good at drawing, and other students were looking over my shoulder, and they liked the graffiti style things that I was doing. So there were times when people would come to my classroom and they'd set a stack of books on the table and ask me to graffiti their book covers. Back then we had to cover all of our books with the brown paper bags or book covers or whatever. So that was one of my first side hustles to get a little bit of lunch money and money for snacks and stuff like that.
What do you think was the difference between like Jersey versus kind of Miami as you kind of moved from, you started in Jersey and then you moved to Miami? What was the difference between those two art scenes?
New Jersey, I grew up in New Jersey, so that was, you know, my sketch pad in a way. I was sort of feeling my way around art and getting familiar with it. I fell in love with art. New Jersey is a good place to move away from. So I have no regrets. It was good, you know, while I was there. The cold weather versus the tropics, you know, there's really no comparison. But yeah, so the difference between there and here, down here, there's more of a professional art culture. So when I came to Florida, I took a job working in picture framing, fine art, and then eventually worked for an art gallery, being an art consultant, and I saw the business side of art here. And Florida, Miami definitely loves color. So I was a little more reserved with the way I used color when I was in New Jersey, based on what I would see. Here, you know, the buildings are all different colors, everything, you know, so we really celebrate the colors down here, and I love that. So it was motivating.
At some point you like converted to Islam. How did that change your art process?
Converting to Islam, one of the major things it did was, there's a tradition in Islam where you don't do portraiture. You don't sculpt realistic human forms. And at a certain part in my artwork, I was good at cartoon drawings. I became good at comic book drawings. I became good at portrait drawings. So I took up airbrush, and I got good with mixing airbrush and paintbrush and actually a little colored pencil. And I could do very, very realistic portraiture. It was laborious, and sometimes it stressed me out, but I got good at it and people were paying me to do it. But once I converted to Islam, I knew I had to give that up, which kind of broke my heart in a way. It was something I was good at, I was making money, but it was a sacrifice. But I figured if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be true to it. And I, moved more closer and closer to the calligraphy, because the culture of Arabic calligraphy and Islamic geometry, those things are like two amazing art forms. So I figured it was a sacrifice, but it was worth doing.
Just more focused in on your art style.
Definitely.
How does the sticker culture differ from graffiti culture, or is it kind of one and the same?
Sticker culture is a growing movement. It's another part of the graffiti movement. So graffiti, many people have described it as just writing on other people's property, with whatever you have available. So whether it's a paintbrush, a paint roller, a spray can, a marker, the stickers are just another way of doing that. And Shepard Fairey was big with promoting the sticker culture. There's a guy out in Colorado that I trade stickers with, so it's pretty cool. You send him a big envelope of stickers and he'll break those up and send them to artists all over the world. And before you know it, you'll be online and you'll see a picture of your sticker somewhere in Japan or in Europe or France. So it's very cool.
And I've heard also there's levels to graffiti, as far as like there's tags and there's throwies and bubbles and pieces. What does it all mean in the graffiti world?
Well, I'm not an authority on it, but basic description of that would be when artists first get into graffiti and they're interested in graffiti, they're going to come up with a name, a short name. Initially, they'll just be drawing that name out in what's called a hand style. Like almost your signature. But after looking at other people's hand styles, you'll kind of get a gist of how to put your letters together. And that will be phase one. And if you're ambitious and you're going out, then you're going to be tagging up that in as many places as you can. And you're sort of practicing and trying to get good at it.
For sure.
From there, you'll want to get your name to be a little bigger. So you'll go into what's called a throwy. And that's a bigger version, bigger letters, more substance to them, either block form or a bubble sort of form to it. And that would be sort of phase two. And in the throwies, maybe you're using not just one color, but maybe two colors. Later on, you might add a third color as you're progressing. And the third phase would be to do actual, like a piece, where you're putting in a background. Your letters are very distinct, they're big, they're formed, they're intricate, so you're growing into that level. That would be called like a piece or a burner. Some artists go to the level where they're getting paid commissions, commission pieces to paint on buildings and legitimate murals with permits and everything like that. Some artists actually take it to the level where they're in galleries selling their work. So there's different levels, and I know this is a little funny, but some people, they get upset with the taggers. And they say that there's a big difference between a real professional graffiti artist and they say that the taggers are kind of like a-holes with spray paint cans because they're just reckless, they're vandals. But the hope is that they'll graduate from that phase to another phase to be a legitimate artist. There's great opportunities right now.
How is the kind of the tools of the trade for graffiti start? Because it started like in the 70s, kind of like the first kind of aerosol, and then what is it like today? Because now we're like 20, 30, 40 years out. So how has that changed over time?
It's changed quite a bit. One cool thing that a lot of people don't know is that graffiti is one of the few art forms that was actually born in the United States of America, that we can lay claim to aerosol can art. It's spread all around the world, but it originated here. So back then, the spray paint cans were awful. They were just enamel paint, compressed. You could hardly get clean, smooth lines. The pressure was way too high. They were messy, but the artists, they grinded it out. They did what they can do, and they made beautiful art out of it. As the years progressed, they changed the formula in the cans. They changed the flow in the cans. New caps came out that you can interchange. Early artists would take caps off of other things. They would take the caps off of a Lysol can or take the caps off of a WD-40 can. They would, creative, really, really creative. Now you have acrylic spray paint in a can. You have low pressure cans. You have caps that can do a very thin line, caps that can do a very wide, smooth line. it's just gotten better and better. The graffiti tools that are available now, get the cool tools. It's so much easier now.
Oh, for sure. I noticed in your work you kind of use spirals. Like, what does that symbolize for you in your artwork?
Spirals and circles, squares, triangles, those kind of shapes appeal to me. We see them in nature. You know, circles, people say sometimes the circle of life, the circle of life. You know, that's one thing to think about. But spirals, to me, us living our life, and you start at one point and you go around your day, but when you come back, you're out a notch. And then you go around your next day and you're out a notch. So our life kind of like spirals from where we started to out, and it's our growth. Hexagons are another shape that I really like.
Yeah.
You know, you look at honeycombs and all these patterns, flowers and things like that have these hexagon patterns, snowflakes.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff is like mind blowing. So nature really amazes me.
Yeah.
And I like to try to pull those things in and put them into the art, you know, let them go and do what they do.
And I noticed in some of your paintings you have messages in there. What kind of messages do you put into your artwork?
Always positive messages.
Okay.
Always positive words, inspirational messages. Mm-hmm. Most of what I write now is English letters.
Yeah.
Even though they're very stylized and sometimes abstract, if you take your time and you're patient, you can read through it. A lot of times I'll decipher it for people, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Let them, you know, decipher it and stare, because it'll be fun for them later on.
They'll be like, oh, that's in there, I didn't see that before.
Right, exactly, big, like, to discover it on their own.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll do English letters and I'll put in Arabic characters. Mm-hmm. You know, I speak a little Arabic.
Yeah.
And I know the Arabic alphabet, the basics.
Yeah.
And I know the symbols to make the letters make the sounds that they make. So I like to put those in there. Mm-hmm. I'll use other languages as well.
Okay.
So I love language, words. Yeah, those things are very fascinating.
Yeah.
We communicate with words,
sure.
either written or spoken or thought. You know, so I think all around the world there's these words, and we have a natural love. You know, when you see something written, it begs to be read.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
I notice also sometimes you have spray caps in your work. What does that symbolize? You know, what's that all about?
That's my tribute to urban art, graffiti art. My tribute to the love of the graffiti movement. I use spray paint cans a lot, so I like to draw the tools that I use.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll see other things show up in my artwork, like pencils, markers, paintbrushes, rollers, even the respirator mask. You'll see those things make little cameo appearances in my work because you know, we draw what's close around us. So that's sort of my still life.
Yeah.
You know, I like to draw my tools.
And I heard recently you did like a big commission for someone. What was that about?
That was a good friend of mine and mentor of mine. He goes by the name of Wyland. Mm-hmm. He's been doing art for over 30 years. He is the guy who saved the dolphins, saved the whales, conservation. He's been around the world. He's done supersized murals. I'm talking buildings that are 20, 30, 40, 50 stories high. Bigger than life. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the amount of wall space that he's covered with murals. I've worked for him, I've worked with him, and he's always encouraged me, you know, do your art, go big. He said, if you're gonna be an artist, be a big artist.
Yeah.
And he likes my work, and he was recently doing some works of his own where he incorporates spray paint in the background, and he does these really amazing Sumi art paintings, you know, like brushstrokey, a big whale or an orca or a dolphin over that with black, and the contrast of it all is super cool. And he knew that my art had that urban edge to it as well. So he challenged me. He's like, you know, I want you to do a couple paintings and show them to me, and I'm gonna buy one. I'm gonna be a collector of yours. Cool. So yeah, shout out to Wyland. Appreciate you.
All right, great. Well, thanks for talking to you, and hope you have a great art career. Keep going and keep us in contact.
Thank you, shawnshawn. You are the real deal, my friend.
Thanks, man.
All right. Take care.